Oh, maybe I do have to go live with you.
Yeah, that'll right? And you understand those three dimensions of space as up, down, which is height, width, and so you have the three dimensions: height, width, and depth, and then the fourth dimension of time. But there's a whole other world of dimensions, right? Scientifically, it's been proven that the dimensions can increasingly become more and more complex as the shapes become more complex. It all starts with a point, 2 points form a line, 4 lines form a square, which is a 2-dimensional object, 6 squares form a cube, which is a 3-dimensional object, and then 8 cubes form a hypercube, which you see as the Tesseract in the Marvel movies, which is why they're searching for that Tesseract, why Loki wants that Tesseract so bad. Because it's a 4th-dimensional object, because it's not of this world, right? And then
that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so that follows the same principle as like the Ark of the Covenant. Why people were like obsessed with finding the Ark of the Covenant, because they believed it was an object not of this world, of a higher dimension, right? That's the whole thing with the Marvel movies and Hydra and all that stuff.
Oh, because it was a power source.
Exactly.
Like unlimited power.
Yeah, precisely.
Okay.
So then you have the 4th dimension in physical space, right? Which is that hypercube. But then the dimensions also can correspond with consciousness. So you have different ways of accessing higher dimensions and higher states of awareness, such as meditation and breath work and psychedelic drugs. I'm sure you've heard these crazy stories of people taking mushrooms or LSD or DMT and seeing an entire world beyond comprehension. The elves, exactly. You hear about it on Joe Rogan. Or you hear about these people having near-death experiences, experiencing things that are unseen, or even your dreams every night. You on a first-hand basis can understand that what you think is reality doesn't always have to follow the rules of what we think is reality.
So, and dreams are unexplained, right? Like there's no explanation for why we dream or benefit, correct?
No.
Right. So do you potentially think that obviously with the 5th dimension, which would kind of exist in our minds, could that potentially be us tapping into that for short periods of time?
Well, I think that's exactly what it is, to be honest. Like, I think I look at dreaming every night as almost like a psychedelic experience. I got my dream journal right here. I do a practice of lucid dreaming, because dreams are the easiest way to access higher dimensional thinking. Like, for example, there's artists, there's musicians that use lucid dreaming to actually compose music, to create artwork, to access new ideas, new thoughts. Like there's scientists that use it too. Paul McCartney wrote Imagine through a lucid dream. Like that's just one example. So lucid dreaming is when you become aware that you're in a dream, right? So I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways to do it. I do reality checks throughout the day. I look at my hands and I say, like, am I dreaming right now? And like really question, like, is this a dream? So that when I'm in a dream and I do it and I go like this and I put my fingers through my hand, my fingers actually go through my hand, you realize you're in a dream. And then you can sort of take control. But the thing about the dream world and this world is it seems the dream world is like not almost as real, if not more real than this world right here, this physical world.
Right.
And like, you know it, you've woken up from a dream before and been like, oh shit, like, did that really just happen? Like, you have to check your phone, like, oh, what day is it? Like some crazy stuff like that.
I've definitely done that.
Yeah, you're asleep in class and you wake up like that, like you're falling off of a building. Like that seemed real, because whatever your mind perceives as real is what's real to you at that present moment.
Okay, so I have a question. You mentioned psychedelic drugs, lucid dreaming. I know that there's some drugs, like marijuana, for instance. If you smoke weed before you go to bed, technically your body can't access REM state, which is the most important part of sleeping, where you dream, right?
Yeah.
So when you mention psychedelics, are you talking about like LSD, DMT, stuff like that? Or
they all kind of fall under that same window of psychedelic. They all have different effects and different uses, but they all kind of fall under that same window of psychedelic.
Fair enough. Okay.
Because, like, I don't know if you've ever taken one, but it allows you to kind of, whatever you're perceiving under that is reality at that moment. So like whatever I'm perceiving right now, like I understand I'm in a healthy state of consciousness on a podcast with you guys. We're having a good conversation. It's like, this is real to me right now.
Yeah.
But then another state of consciousness could be, oh, my girlfriend broke up with me and the world is crashing down and I seem depressed, right? Like that, I'm just making up a scenario in my head.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like,
yeah, no, I haven't had a girlfriend for a while,
yeah.
but like that consciousness that you're feeling at that time is as real to you then as it is right now, right? Like whatever you believe to be true is true. So when you're on those psychedelic states of consciousness, you're perceiving things that are outside of this. So what happened to me, I took a psychedelic drug and I realized there's a whole lot more to this world than what I'm seeing, right? I perceive that fifth element of ether, which was like the energy that's all around us, which
Can
is
you explain what that look or felt like?
Okay, so I'll explain the exact moment because it's honestly indescribable with words. Okay. But I'll explain the exact moment. So I was at a party, I was hanging out with my friends, we're having a good time, whatever. And I'm standing in front of the speaker and it's blasting music. And I'm literally just standing in front of it with my hands like open like this. And my friend walks up to me who wasn't doing that. He was just like there. He was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm feeling the music. And I was like, never meant it. It meant it quite literally of like, I could physically feel the vibrations of the music on my hand. Like you're looking at the world around you and the trees are breathing. You're realizing that the grass is alive, that there's behind those eyes of everybody, that there's a soul behind it and not just the body or whatever you're labeling that person as. And it kind of like opens up the world of like how real everything is, because like you look through the lens of separation when we're just walking around, when I'm going to class, when I'm going to football, or when you're going to work. You're looking through that lens of separation as in like I'm I and you are you, but those psychedelic drugs and meditation and stuff, those open you up to the fact of like the connectivity and the interconnectivity between everything.
That's true. That's crazy. I mean, so I've read and seen a lot about almost exactly what you were talking about. I've never done anything like that before. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would definitely love to try that in like a controlled situation.
Yeah, that's definitely the best
like,
bet.
You got some stones to do it at like a college party, you know?
No, I was at home and then we just ended up going somewhere, but
fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, I figured it was one of those like, here, man, have some of this. And then
the thing was, I realized after doing that the first time, it was like, that's not the way to do it. Yeah. And I realized you have to be out in nature and you have to be connected with your shoes off and you got to be in a healthy state of mind, because what it really does is it brings the subconscious mind to the forefront of your mind. And the reason you hear people have bad trips or bad experiences on psychedelic drugs a lot of times is because they're not ready to face a past that they've experienced or themselves with acceptance and forgiveness. And when all of the subconscious thoughts that you've been repressing for so long rush to the forefront of your mind and you fight them, you're going to have a terrible time. But if you're able to look at your past, right, with love, acceptance, forgiveness, it allows you to kind of heal those wounds. Like the same way I look at it, like you have metaphysical cuts all over your body and you never put a Band-Aid on them. And then by going back into your past and seeing the past with acceptance, forgiveness, it's like putting a Neosporin and a Band-Aid on it and letting them heal finally. You can finally face those, because like I can go into my head right now, and I do it every single day now. It's shadow work. So I let those subconscious thoughts or those things that I've repressed in my life, past trauma, whatever. Not that I had a bad childhood by any means. Like my childhood was great, but it's just like little things of like, oh, my teacher gave me detention in second grade and I never forgave her. Like, okay, I'm going to forgive her. I'm going to forgive myself for not forgiving her. And it's just like little things like that is like, you get to heal the past and then you get to go into the future with a clear slate of mind. Like that's all stuff that's baggage that you're holding. Like, oh, I didn't forgive this person. I didn't face my past with acceptance. And you're holding that in here without even knowing it. And it's just weighing you down.
No way. That's a crazy way to think about that.
Yeah.
Wow. So, do you think once you face all these things, right, and you can clear yourself, do you think that takes multiple trips? Or do you feel
so let me rephrase. I think that psychedelics are a good tool to realize those things, but I think that a sober state of mind is the most powerful state of mind to actually do the work.
Well, I didn't know if you felt after that experience, if you felt like a weight was lifted off of you.
You definitely do. You're on like a permanent state of just like universal oneness and love, appreciation for the world for like a couple weeks if you have a good experience. But then again, that feeling that you're feeling, you can hit a low point just as fast. After a couple weeks, oh, I'm feeling great, and one thing happens, and it all just falls apart. And then you realize like, oh, like I was just feeling that way for no reason, or whatever reason you make in your head. But like the whole reason, so my whole thing is like those psychedelic drugs give you the euphoric sensation. They give you what reality should be like, and then you have to go put the work in yourself to make reality that way. So that like my idea is like, how do I feel that way all of the time? And I find that for myself is by seeing the world through love. So I practice every day. Like it's literally like mental gymnastics. It's like the ego and like the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other, like the ego and the spirit battling in your mind at all times is kind of how I look at it. Of like, okay, like I can make a decision that benefits me as a physical body, or I could make a decision that benefits me as a metaphysical body. What will make me happier? Like, will this temporary gratification help me in the long run? Like, do I smoke this cigarette right now and maybe want another one in a week? Or do I ignore the cigarette right now and go a couple more weeks without that urge? Or like, right. Do I go hang out with this girl that I don't have any interest in? Or do I stay true to myself and like fight my sexual temptations or whatever it is, right? Like just being able to kind of like know what's true in your own mind too. And that only comes definitely from a sober state of consciousness. But the psychedelic states allow you to be like, oh, like this is how I was acting. I should not act this way anymore. Or, oh, that happened in my past. Let me forgive, accept now, and then I can go into the future with a happier state of mind.
It makes you think. So coming from someone like me, I like to call myself a free thinker that likes to question things. You know, makes you think, why is this not practiced more? Why isn't this stuff that's put into the daily routine of a school system or whatever else to just be good with yourself and with everybody else and treat people with kindness, right? It goes to wonder why we're fed fluoride and all these other chemicals that repress our body, our spirit, the third eye, if you will, you know, so we can't access some of these things. And I don't know. What do you think? Why do you think this stuff is being kind of on the down low? And like yourself, you start posting some stuff that starts questioning regular reality, digging deep into the topics that you go into, and now you're blocked temporarily till Sunday. You know, exactly. What do you think the powers that be? Why do you think the powers that be not want this information to get out?
So that's a good question. I think that the powers that be have known this information for millennia, dating back to ancient Sumeria, even to those times. The Egyptian mystery schools, the occult, you hear them called, right? And the thing about the knowledge of this kind of stuff, about consciousness, about how your mind and your spirit and your body can interact with the physical world as well as the metaphysical world, they can use that not only for good but for evil. And using, not good and evil are bad terms, they can use it to benefit others or they can use it to benefit themselves. And the thing is, when the way that it's being used right now is in the hands of greed, it's in the hands of it's in the structure of money, right? People want the gratification of all these women to follow them and all this money and a big house and lots of cars and lots of food, but ultimately you see how that doesn't make these people happy ever. And you see in Hollywood all these people committing suicide and the drug use and stuff like that.
Do you think they're all suicides?
No, not by any means. If you're hanging from your neck by a door handle, I don't. You didn't kill yourself.
It's like drowning in an inch of water in your bathtub.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he hung himself with fractures all over his spine. It's like, yep, for like sure.
The rope mark had 5 separate angles on each side of the, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Imprints. It's like, it's weird. But back to the 5D, not to question that type of stuff.
No, that's what got me into the 5D.
Fair enough. Sam, what do you think, man? What are you taking from this?
I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's all pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. At some point I'd like to get into like practical applications of like psychics and using your mind and whatnot. You know, I'm not sure how versed you guys are on like those military programs that we used to have, like the Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yes, that's a great movie.
Damn, what do they call them? This idea that the U.S. government had of using
remote viewing. So, is what you're talking about the remote viewing?
Well, yeah. Well, I was going to get into that. They also had this program where they were going to have people basically become like these new kind of peacekeepers, where they would have radios tied to their chest, and they would go into a village, and without any guns or anything, they would just like play messages over and over again, and like hold puppies and like give them to the villagers. Like this was all part of that.
Of like a peaceful kind of.
Yeah, it was all part of all these guys were involved in like that whole Men Who Stare at Goats thing, where they tried to, you know, mentally attack people with their minds, which it's a little different from the, you know, remote viewing and all that stuff they did at Stanford and all those different places. But do you believe that you can interact with somebody physically in the real world just using your mind?
Yeah, I would say so. I think so. I believe that. I mean, this is my belief, and a lot of my stuff that I believe in comes from this book right here. A Course in Miracles is a great one. The Law of One, the raw material, is another book that I've studied very closely. So essentially, I believe in the mind, body, spirit complex is like what you think of you as. I believe it as the mind, the body, and the spirit, and the Holy Trinity, essentially, what it really is. And you're able to separate those things from one another. So, for example, okay, so that Law of One material, I'll talk a little bit about that. So the Law of One material, the way that they got this material was there was a group of UFO researchers, and they had very little luck seeing UFOs, and a lot of the whole UFO community is a whole lot of woo-woo of, oh, this happened, oh, did that really happen, was that a dream, etc. And then they realized that there was people out there that were communicating with higher intelligences or awarenesses through their own minds, channeling them, if you want to call it that. And so essentially I guess they got in communication or contact with people who were already doing this. And it took them a couple of years to really refine it down to how they were going to do it. And if you look up in the book, they have a whole entire ceremony beforehand, cleansing the room. The woman who was going to be channeled through wore a white robe, laid on a white table the room was all white. She had a Bible by her head, incense burning, a candle, and a virgin chalice of water, all right by her. And they had a hypnotist, they had a scribe, and they had the questioner. So the questioner's name was Don Elkins. He was the one who asked the questions. And then Jim McCarty was the guy who was the scribe. And then Claire, Clara something was the woman who was put to sleep. So she had to be oblivious of what was happening. And it was kind of interesting. What sparked my interest into it was like, okay, like this woman was unaware of like what was coming out of her own mouth. So she was hypnotized by the hypnotist, put into a trance state, and then she that higher intelligence, essentially the same way you see in these horror movies where The Conjuring or something, where a spirit takes over somebody's body, that
Right.
same way this entity called Ra then was able to speak or communicate through her body as the vocal mechanism. So there's literal recording audio tapes of her speaking in a trance state. She's unaware of what she's saying, and the words coming from her mouth are just beyond comprehensibility of what a human would be able to put together. And this guy questions this intelligence that's inhabiting her body at that time. And that's what the book, The Law of One, is all about. And it talks about the densities of consciousness, the Galactic Federation, kind of the power structures on Earth, the so love, light, and how that's the true energy of the universe, how the logos, the sub logos, kind of energy in general, energy, vibration, frequency, just all of these different topics that were kind of philosophical in a way that people didn't have answers to. And then it kind of puts them in a sense that it's like, oh shit, like this actually makes sense now. And then there's other stuff that corresponds with it. The Bashar material, if you've heard of that, if you've heard of Dolores Cannon. I don't know about all of her stuff, but I know some of her stuff definitely corresponds very closely with that. The Pyramid Code stuff that just came out with Jason Shirka like 2 years ago, which is very interesting. I don't know about all the validity of all that stuff, but like there's so much information just corresponds together, and that's just one of the things that I've seen that.
Well, a lot of what you just described to me sounds a lot like Aleister Crowley and Theosophy and all the stuff that he used to do, almost to the letter. I mean, that's exactly how they would do a lot of these rituals that they, would do. Jeff, I don't know how familiar you are with like Theosophy and all the exploits of Aleister Crowley, but I for one, in a bigger sense, believe that a lot of these entities, UFO phenomenon, all of this stuff is in fact just a psychic phenomena. I think that's why you see, like you were talking about, people can communicate with these things. We see in what me and Jeff have talked about earlier, Ingo Swann, these remote viewing people that have, and specifically in Penetration, Ingo Swann's book, he talks about how the government approached him to go witness a UFO like materialize out of nowhere. I think it's very obvious that this is all some kind of psychic phenomena. And
What do you mean? What do you mean by psychic phenomenon?
So, I believe you initially said, I don't know if you said this, I might be putting words in your mouth, but how some people can see UFOs, some people can't, right?
Okay.
You said something along the lines of that, correct?
I don't know if I said that about UFOs.
I don't know. I don't think you said that exactly. It doesn't matter. But so
Whatever.
we often get to this thing where people can't photograph ghosts. People can't photograph UFOs. People are like, oh, I swear there was something there, a shadow person. When I was, on a substance, whatever, I saw a person, a man, some kind of Sherpa. Nobody else saw this person. I believe all these things are connected and that they are all one giant psychic phenomena. And when I say psychic phenomena, I mean the reason that some people can witness, say, a Bigfoot, say a poltergeist in their house, say...
They all happen one after another, too, within a small period of time, most of the time.
A lot of this stuff is connected, but what I'm getting to is that some people are more psychically connected to that next level, and they're more open to receiving that kind of information, right?
Yes.
So that's why, you get a lot of cases. Like, I know it happens in the book The Mothman Prophecies, where some people can see these certain UFOs, some people can't, right? Mm-hmm. So to bring that all back to what we're talking about psychically, do you believe that, like, it's possible that if you really get yourself to some kind of spiritual level, on a level of people like Aleister Crowley and all these gurus, whatever you want to call them, that have these experiences, like, do you think that any person can get themselves to that level through, opening up their mind's eye? to say?
Well, yeah. So I think, so I'm sure you've heard the Nikola Tesla quote. If you think about the terms of the universe in energy, frequency, and vibration, right? You've heard about Nikola Tesla talk about energy, frequency, vibration, and in
Yeah.
the same way that everything is energy, frequency, vibration, that means your energy, frequency, vibration, right? And the whole entire meditative practice, all spiritual practices lead to raising your own vibration. As I was talking about the shadow work before, meditation, you have contemplation, all these different ways that you can kind of put your mind to work, creativity, creating all the time. I play guitar, I try to draw, I try to journal. Using all these different ways, you can increase your own vibration, right? And that's what these monks do. The monks go and they meditate for days. All they're doing is getting more in tune of what reality really is, in what I think, or I guess think a shared opinion with many people. But they're raising their vibration so that they can perceive higher levels of awareness. So I guess that's kind of along the line. So you're asking about if more people are more in tune with the psychic realm, is what you're saying, or like the ether, the metaphysical world?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So here's an example from my life, which doesn't make any sense. This is just a crazy story. And
Doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
We love crazy stories.
So I was up at a ski trip in Vermont.
Nice. That's my neighbor.
Nice. So I was up in Vermont. I don't even know how old I was. All I know, I was probably about 10. My sister was 4. I want to say 3 or 4. And she was at the hotel bar with my mom, the restaurant. And some woman was sitting there with her daughter, another woman. Doesn't matter. She was sitting there having a conversation. My mom said she kind of looked upset before. And my sister was like, went to the bathroom and came back, and she was like looking in the corner of the room. And without any spark, they had no idea who this woman was. My sister walked up to this woman and was like, so-and-so says he loves you, or says he misses you, or is sending love, something along the lines of that, to this woman. And her husband died 2 weeks before. And my sister named her dead husband by name to her in a bar. Never talked to the woman ever in her life before. He said, and my mom was like, who said this? And my sister was like, the man in the corner of the room said it to me when I went to the bathroom.
Oh, damn.
And yeah. And it's like, in my opinion, I think that children are the purest form of consciousness. And that's the whole thing with the occult, is why they're so obsessed with children and pedophilia. I don't want to get into that yet, or right now. But the reason for that is because those children are the purest form of consciousness that there are. They're still attached and very connected to that realm of spirit. And they can perceive higher levels of awareness. Like, for that exact example, like me at 20 years old right now, that would never happen to me. Or I don't think that would happen to you guys right now, at least.
Right.
But like, those phenomenons happen to children all the time. Like, I'm sure my sister is not alone in having a story like that. I'm sure there's plenty of other children who've had crazy stories. You've had stories like that?
Yeah. So,
oh wait, I don't want to interrupt you, but I see the time left 2:21 in the Zoom meeting. What's going to happen with that? Is that going to...
I think at this point, honestly, we should just transition entirely to TikTok. That way I don't have like a million things up
That's
on this
fine.
end. Is that
I don't
cool
care.
with everybody?
Yeah, I'm cool with
but
that.
yeah, guys, we're going to transition. Anybody that's on the YouTube, we're transitioning solely on the TikTok. If you guys are just joining in the TikTok, which I see a lot of people are pouring in now, you're in for show. We got a lot of crazy stories and some more 5D experiences here.
Yes, sir.